Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how we create the arccosine graph. Now up at the top here we have an example of the cosine function. And so what we're going to do to graph arccosine is we're going to say, well, we need to find the inverse. So down below we're going to graph x equals cosine of y. Now I'm not using function notation here because it may be a function or it may not be. We have to figure that out. And so the only thing that happened between this equation and this equation is that x and y traded places. So if I know this graph for this relationship, then to get this relationship, all I have to do is just take all the x and y values and trade places, because that's what I did. So I'm going to take this first point, negative pi over 2 comma 0, and I'm going to graph 0, negative pi over 2 down here. So I graph that. Then my next point is 0, comma 1. So that's going to become 1, comma 0. So down here, I have 1, 0. The next point on cosine is pi over 2, comma 0. So that's going to be 0, comma pi over 2. Then on cosine, the next point is pi, comma negative 1. So here, for x equals cosine of y, that's going to be negative 1, comma pi up there. Then we have 3 pi over 2, comma 0. That's a point on y equals cosine x. So on x equals cosine of y, it's going to be 0, comma 3 pi over 2. And then finally, the last point that'll fit here, for cosine, the point is 2 pi, comma 1. So on this graph is going to be 1, comma 2 pi. And so when we connect all of these points, what we get is a picture that looks kind of like this. And unfortunately, this is not a function, which is why we didn't use the function notation, because it doesn't pass the vertical line test. If we were to draw vertical lines, it wouldn't work. So we want to talk about arccosine as though it were a function. So in order to make that work, what we have to do is we have to take just a snippet of it. So what we do is we take this piece of the graph of x equals cosine of y. That's the piece right here. And so what we say is f of x equals arccosine of x. And so this is our function, because this snippet does pass the vertical line test. And so anytime we look at the function arccosine of y, this is all we can see. Any more of this graph and it would fail to be a function. Now since it's a function, let's state the domain and the range. So the domain for this function is from negative 1 to positive 1. And the range for this function, the lowest value is 0, and the highest value is pi. Now notice that this is different than the graph for arcsine, because the graphs that produced arcsine and arccosine are different. And so even though they have the same domains, they do have different ranges. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button. If you have suggestions or problems you want to see worked out, type a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the best way to understand something is to do it.